So we're doing things a little differently. Change the format a bit this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. we're not doing the usual coffee. Otherwise, things are pretty the same. We're gonna get new theme. We're gonna get new theme music. It's gonna be a nice little refresh. I'm very excited. Caroline was thinking though that we should just change the format of the show entirely, and we should be like a dating advice / fitness podcast.
Well, a dating advice / fitness podcast, and also a bad movie review podcast, and also a film where we point out all of the flaws with whatever film came out this past week in cinemas. Yes.
So it's like this is how you do crunches correctly, and also these are the 40 things wrong with Borderlands and why it's an insult to the fans.
Correct. No, exactly.
Yeah.
So you got it.
What is it? Is it still Borderlands? Are people still yelling about Borderlands right now?
I don't think anybody ever yelled about Borderlands. I feel like the thing I saw about Borderlands was people just being like, yeah, we all knew it was going to suck. End of conversation.
I know you don't really follow like video games as much as me,
I do
but
not.
they're doing like, I think they're on their fourth one. I've played some of the Borderlands video games. I've not played all of them, but they are releasing, I think it's the fourth Borderlands, the new one. And they just announced it at like one of the big
is what it's called.
Borderlands, yes. Border Force.
Borderlands. I hardly know her lands. Thank you. Thank you.
And they just is very good, very good. They just announced it at like one of the big gaming press events of the season. And from what I could tell, like when they revealed that it was a Borderlands 4th, because they definitely timed it out with like, oh, the movie's going to come out, and we're going to do the announcement at the same time. When, as far as I could tell, like when it got announced, there's like a reveal in the game trailer that it's a Borderlands thing. And like half the audience gasped and cheered, and the other half kind of just audibly groaned because everyone's very tired of Borderlands.
Yeah.
Because they made like an apocalyptically bad movie.
Yeah.
That is only being noticed because it's bad. Like the 5 people that saw it were like, oh, this is like, it's weird that this and Madam Web happened in the same year.
Yeah. Well, wait, why is it weird that those two things happened in the same year?
Just because they're both such terrible bad licensed movies.
Oh,
like,
gotcha.
Bad in like uniquely horrible ways.
Oh God, the worst thing that happens in the universe is, oh my God, Borderlands was directed by Eli Roth?
Oh yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that.
That's the one interesting thing about Borderlands. Okay, well that and that it's Cate Blanchett and Jamie Lee Curtis.
You know what, speaking of things that were good and came out around 2010, then had disappointing sequels, but the original thing was pretty good. Carson, you haven't seen Jack Reacher.
No, I've not.
Which, like, Carson, how have you not seen Jack Reacher?
We still gotta do the thing. We don't do this podcast for like 2 months and you forget the part of the copy we're still doing.
What? Oh, okay,
how
right.
Have you not seen?
Yes,
a movie.
And because Carson has not seen Jack Reacher. Hey, it's a new formula. We're playing around.
Yeah,
we're experimenting.
Working the kinks out.
Because
it's like a claptrap from Borderlands. It's a little wacky and it doesn't work right.
Right, sure, whatever that means. Because Carson has not seen Jack Reacher, I thought I would bring it up this week on How Have You Not Seen, a movie podcast where we fill in the gaps in each other's. Nope.
Keep it in. I'm keeping it in.
Okay.
Keep going. We're gonna find it.
On How Have You Not Seen, a movie podcast where each week we pick one of our favorite movies that the other hasn't seen.
We talk about it.
Then we go and we watch that fucking movie.
Then we talk about it some more.
It's going to be a really, really, really fucking good time in some ways.
Borderlands.
I will say it is kind of, parts of this film are kind of harrowing, and parts of this film are kind of very depressing and upsetting, but also this film rips redonkulously hard.
Mm-hmm.
So having said all of that, totally cleanly, no edits whatsoever, not a single edit of the entire episode, not even when my Zoom window crashed. Just kidding, please edit that out. I'm the producer
now, so
yeah.
I'm the producer now. I'm not making any fucking edits.
But
it's staying in. It's gonna be. It's perfect as it is.
Please actually edit out the part where I said, "Wait, why can't I see my Zoom window crashed?" But Carson, how have you not seen Jack Reacher?
That is a good question. So I recently, maybe a few months ago, definitely this year, I caught up on the last 2 Mission Impossibles, which I had not seen. I had not seen Fallout or Dead Reckoning Part 1, but maybe it's not Part 1 anymore. Maybe it's just Dead Reckoning, end of title. Who knows, remains to be seen. And I think like in like that, and we recorded our episode on Top Gun Maverick, so I was really like modern Tom Cruise in it. I was really cruising on the cruise. I was thinking about Christopher McQuarrie a lot. I became aware of the fact that this movie is directed by Christopher McQuarrie, right?
That is correct. That's correct.
This is like the first Cruise X McQuarrie venture. This is the thing that leads them to do like, what are they going to end up doing? Like probably 5 Mission Impossibles together when they're all set.
Correct, yes.
So that alone gives this a pedigree that I did not know that it had. I thought, because there have been other adaptations of Jack Reacher. There is currently one with that guy that's 8 foot tall. What's his name? Alan Richardson. That's his name.
Is that Reacher or is that Ryan?
Or is that Jack Ryan? Shit, you're right. No, I think that's Reacher. I think the name of the show is Reacher.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. It's just they're always redoing Reacher. Or they're always redoing Ryan. There haven't been a ton of Reacher adaptations, but yes, I think you're right. I think there is a television show called Reacher. I do think you're correct.
Jack Ryan, not Reacher, is one of those characters that if you look at every actor that has played him, first off, you go like, wow, a surprising pedigree for this like book that you buy at the airport character. And then the second thing, you're like, these are 6 men who that are like entirely different energies. Like there's no consistency to what this character is clearly.
Correct, because he's the guy with a gun who does secret agent missions.
Yeah.
Which could really be a lot of different things. It could be an Alec Baldwin, it could be a Chris Pine, it could be a Harrison Ford. You know, it could be lots of things. Lots of guys can have guns.
Wasn't Michael B. Jordan a Ryan? Or was he a Reacher? Wasn't Krasinski a Ryan?
I think, yeah, Krasinski. Was Krasinski a Ryan? Yeah, I think Krasinski was a Ryan.
Krasinski was a Ryan.
There's so many Ryans, but we're not talking about Ryans. We're talking about Reachers.
You lay out those boys. It makes no sense. Anyway, Jack Reacher. I became aware that this was a McQuarrie Cruise thing. It made me infinitely more interested in it. I mean, this is like kind of from the early 10s, but because Tom Cruise is so locked in to the thing that he's doing now, which is like, I make my Mission Impossibles, and then like, if I can get like, and it is we talked a lot about in the Maverick episode, how like, Tom Cruise is like the auteur on Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
Like if he can get something going, either in one of his franchises or with one of his guys, you know, if he can do an American Made because he works with Doug Liman so much, you know, he'll do that. But otherwise, no. And this was an early entrant into Tom Cruise's like shuffling himself into that's the thing he's going to do in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I just always kind of assumed that it was like, oh, they made like 2 of them. Nobody really talks about them. They're probably just trash. Like it's like Oblivion. Like it's not that great a movie. It's like it's a very mid-action movie. What I've heard from you and from some other people is that this movie is pretty good.
This movie is very good. Can I very quickly tell you my experience watching this movie for the first time?
Absolutely, please do.
It was pretty recent. It was it was post Mission Impossible Fallout. I had rewatched all of the McQuarrie Cruise, and also, you know, I actually started with MI3. I watched the entire Mission Impossible franchise leading up to Dead Reckoning. I watched the entire franchise. Then I watched Dead Reckoning, and then I was on Paramount Plus, and like notably Tom Cruise like was with Paramount for forever, and so all of Tom Cruise's like 90s movies are on Paramount Plus. So I kind of went down a rabbit hole of just like watching a lot of the Cruise biggest hits, and this one was on there as well. And I had heard good things about it. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, I'm on a cruise kick. Let's go. My plan was like, I got home and I like needed to eat dinner really fast, but I needed to like, you know, clean my kitchen, do some chores and stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm going to like sit down on the couch. I'm going to put on Jack Reacher. I'm going to eat my dinner. When I'm done with dinner, I'm going to pause the movie, go do my chores, come back, finish the movie tonight. The first 10 minutes of this movie are so insanely strong and gripping in a way I was not prepared for, that I did not pause the film and I did not get up and do my chores. It was literally about 2 minutes in, like 2 to 4 minutes in. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you see it. Kind of the cold open of the film, the inciting incident of the film. It's like watching it. I'm like, okay, yep, action movie. And then it happens. And I was like, oh, I was not ready for this movie to be, one, this gripping so fast, and two, just kind of this interesting and excellent. And like from literally the first minute, I was anticipating there to be like some stakes being set up, maybe an action sequence, like kind of like you were saying, like kind of I was kind of anticipating it to be like a movie where it's like, yeah, the story, the scene work is like whatever, but then Tom Cruise will like do a motorcycle chase and that'll be really cool. Nope. First 10 minutes of this movie, I was like, holy shit. You will know exactly what I'm talking about when you see it.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, I was not prepared for this. Let's fucking go. Yes, that was my experience watching this movie. And then I proceeded to sit on my couch for the remainder of the runtime and watch it. Well, that all having been said, and you've kind of gotten into it a little bit, but what do you know about Jack Reacher?
Jack Reacher is, I mean, much in the Jack Ryan vein, kind of one of these like middle-aged white American guy, like author self-insert characters. If I have the difference correct, because I've certainly not absorbed all the Jack Ryan material, and I know a little bit about the Alan Ritchson Reacher solely because there was a bit of a kerfuffle over in bodybuilding YouTube world, which is something I absorbed quite a bit of.
Yes, it's yes.
And just about like Alan Ritchson is one of these many guys who like, whatever, went on Seth Meyers and was like, yeah, I had to put on like 30 pounds of muscle for this role. And it took me like 2 months of hard work. And that is not something that's physically possible without drugs.
Correct, indeed.
And like he got into a bit of a thing with that. And like, so I think the thing with Reacher, because Ryan, like Hunt for Red October, Jack Ryan is like a CIA agent. He's a government guy.
Yes.
Reacher is like he used to be, like he's one of these classic kind of wandering the countryside guys. He's almost like the Hulk in the Lou Ferrigno Hulk show. He kind of goes town to town righting wrongs with his superpowers that include like being trained by the U.S. military to kill guys, right? Like he's just really good at beating dudes up.
Sort of.
And he's kind of a wanderer.
Yeah, sort of. I would give you the Wanderer, and like maybe that's how the book series kind of functions, or presumably the television series. The film, anyway, kind of has it a little bit more like Jack Reacher is this guy and he's doing this thing, and then he gets sucked in for this reason. Yeah, he is not an official. That's kind of a big part of how he gets sucked into this is he's not an official government person. I'll leave it there.
He plays by his own rules.
Sort of, yeah. I will leave it there.
Like Roland, played by Kevin Hart in the movie Borderlands.
Yeah, see, you get it. You do be getting it.
Yeah, I get it. I understand Reacher. There's another in this movie, directed by Christopher McQuarrie, obviously, Tom Cruise. I feel like the villain, there's a main villain who is like a very strong old dude character actor, right?
Yes.
I feel like I know who it is, I just can't remember.
You definitely know who it is, and that is a very good way to describe it, and also you are not ready for who it ends up being. It is so...
Is it Sean Bean?
No.
No? Okay.
It is Sean so Bean much more of an interesting gonzo bonkers choice than that, in a way that's really fun.
I mean, because you could imagine a Sean Bean in this kind of movie, like that's very much the role that he fulfills.
Yeah, he's such a good villain in a secret agent movie. That's like he is a super villain with a black turtleneck on and a pistol, a la GoldenEye, or he is a medieval man who must die by the end of the film, a la everything else he's ever been in. Yes, that is a very good Sean Bean thing. But no, it is not Sean Bean. It is a much stranger and more interesting and really fun choice. Anything else that you know about this movie?
I don't think so. My guess is that Tom Cruise probably does some running, probably holds a gun.
Cool. And just so we are all clear, so Jack Reacher has only been played by two people. He has been played by Tom Cruise, and he has been played by as you mentioned, Alan Ritchson in the TV show. Jack Ryan has been played by Alec Baldwin, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck, Chris Pine, and John Krasinski. So yes, Krasinski is one. Michael B. Jordan is not a Ryan or a Reacher. I think you are probably thinking of, he did an Amazon original movie that looks kind of, where he's a Navy SEAL called Without Remorse, in which he plays a character named John Kelly. I can only assume no relation to the White House staffer, but
yeah,
the Trump administration's John Kelly, but
John Kelly is a skip and a jump away from Jack Reacher, though. I mean, come on, that's like
no, of course, and
from
he's
Jack
a Navy
Ryan,
SEAL,
rather.
and yeah, so I
It's
think
a
that's
weird list
probably
of
what you're
dudes,
thinking
though.
of. But if that is all you know, Carson, are you ready to move into our little game for the week?
Oh yeah, so ready, born ready.
All right. Well, in that case, we are playing one of our favorite games. It is Rotten Tomatoes. The Price is Right. If you are joining us for the first time this week, the way this works is I have selected 3 films. Carson and I are going to guess their tomato meter score on the review aggregation website, rottentomatoes.com. And we are going to each take a guess. And when we come back from the break, we will reveal the scores. And closest without going over, best 2 out of 3 wins the week. So, Carson,
Hell yeah.
We are starting with this week's film, Jack Reacher. What do you think?
70.
I think that's fair.
Respectable 70.
I think that's very fair. I think it's probably a little bit higher just because the craft is so good. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say 83.
Damn, that's quite a bit higher, Caroline.
Yeah, but I think
that ain't a little bit higher.
I think it deserves it. I think it deserves it. I think it deserves it.
Okay.
The next film is one that's already been a bit invoked on this podcast already. Jack Ryan, Shadow Recruit, which is, of course, the Chris Pine stab at rebooting Jack Ryan from the, I want to say like the early 2010s. I want to say like 2012, 2013, somewhere in there.
This is before people thought Chris Ryan was weird. This is like, no, just down the middle leading man. He was Captain Kirk.
Yeah, this is before he really had the identity as being like a really strong actor and also a weirdo who will kind of do a lot of different shit. Speaking of which, have you seen the Dungeons and Dragons movie?
I still haven't.
It's really
a real shame.
solid.
I know. I'm probably going to love it. I got to watch it.
If there is any film on the planet that the word solid like describes, I think it's Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. It's not the best movie I've ever seen, but it's certainly pretty good.
And it like made money. I just hope they make $1 billion of it. They should make like 5 of those.
I think
movies.
So
that's
too.
The whole thing.
Because that's the whole thing.
And
with
each one
Dragons.
Can be themed a little differently. You know, they can do like the way you do different D&D campaigns. Like, oh, this one's kind of a pirate adventure. This one's like all in an elf fort. You know, whatever.
I totally agree.
I have not seen Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit. I don't think it's well remembered. If I remember correctly, a couple of months ago, I was listening to Pine on Marin's podcast. He was locking them gates, and they talked at length about how like this was the follow-up to Star Trek that just didn't go, and he kind of thought, ooh, maybe I'm not a leading man. Like maybe this is rough.
Right.
So I don't think this movie is well remembered. I'm going to say it is a 48.
Okay, a 48. I think that's a little low. I think this movie is completely I have not seen it, but if I remember correctly, I believe it's a completely forgettable, but like still fairly serviceable. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to say a 60% because I don't think it was terrible. And it is kind of, it's so interesting because like there is no rhyme or reason to why, because all 5 of the actors who've played Jack Ryan are all very famous men. It's just that Alec Baldwin was like just starting to become a thing, and they're like, hey, maybe we could put him in this movie. And then Harrison Ford is like famous beyond famous, as famous could be. But when he takes it over,
you go from Dad in Beetlejuice to Han Solo. That's a bit of a jump.
And then in 2002, it's Ben Affleck. Which again is like, okay, you're kind of, you had your starring moment, but you're kind of waning a little bit. And you have Chris Pine again, which is more in the Alec Baldwin realm, but certainly like a genre guy, certainly like, you know, this guy popped in a leading role where he's playing like a roguish type. Like, let's make him a secret fucking agent. And then John Krasinski, where it's like, you know, literally like 10 years after you are the most famous actor on television, let's make you Jack Ryan because your whole thing is you're a gun actor now. Like you do movies about guns now.
John Krasinski, a guy who, as I understand it, was like one of the 5 square-jawed all-American white dudes who were, if not in serious consideration, like in the room for a number of action movies and superhero flicks in the late aughts and early 10s.
Totally.
And just none of them went. I think because those casting directors, well, either they got more famous actors or they understood that John Krasinski is not, I don't really associate action hero with his presence. He is a sitcom star.
No, absolutely.
Very famously, the guy who was almost Captain America, John Krasinski.
It's almost like it kind of feels like he was like, damn, I missed out on playing all of these iconic characters. Somebody get me an iconic character to play. And it kind of makes sense that the one he gets is kind of, as we mentioned, the one who it's like, it is not at all about the man at the center. Jack Ryan, rather, is kind of just like the most competent gun holder in American literature. The most capable gun haver. All right, and then the final film, Carson, that we are going to discuss today is notable stinker, not to prime you in any one way or another, but it's Francis Ford Coppola's film, Jack.
Jack? Oh.
A film that, to be clear, when I was 6 years old and I borrowed it from the library on VHS, I thought was like truly the greatest film ever made.
This is also a movie I've never seen. Jack's the one where it's Robin Williams and he's aging weird, right?
Yes, it's Robin Williams and he ages like insanely fast. So it's like, I believe the thing is he's like 45-year-old Robin Williams, but he is literally only 7 years old. It's not even like a Benjamin Button thing where it's like, oh, like it is not like a developmental thing where it's like, oh, he's, 45, but he only has the brain of a 7-year-old or like whatever. It's like, no,
it's not I Am Sam.
Yeah, it's like this organism right here has been on the planet for 7 years and it looks like 45-year-old Robin Williams. Like, this person was born 7 years ago and has only been on this mortal plane for 7 years, and yet he looks like a 45-year-old Robin Williams.
That is not a premise that I expect, and I love him. Rest in peace. But that is not a premise that one would expect Robin Williams to handle with any amount of care or tact. Like, that's one of those famous flops, right? Like, that's one of the big boys. Like, that's a flop so bad that they make fun of you in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
I think Jack is also bad, right? What is it, like a 40? Probably a 40.
Oh my gosh, wow. You think it's that high?
It's probably lower than that, isn't it? I'll keep it. I'll say 40.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like this is like such a punchline that like I can only imagine. I'm going to say 7. I'm going to say 7%. Go so low.
Wow. Okay.
If you're good there, then that is our game, and I think we are ready to go and watch Jack Reacher.
I'm really excited to watch Jack Reacher. I think I'm going to like this movie a lot.
I think you are too, and I think that there is I think there's going to be a lot to talk about.
There's no Ilsa Faust that they can kill in this movie, right?
There's no Ilsa Faust, no. One thing I actually will say before we go is if I have one complaint about this movie, there is one shot that we will talk about at length that I think is like, and you talking about, is there Ilsa Faust? There's not, but there is a leading lady in the film. And there is one shot in this movie that I think I'm like, ooh, on the one hand, I see what you were trying to do. And on the other hand, you should not have recorded that image, I don't think.
Oh.
And
interesting. Okay.
And we will discuss that probably at great length when we get back. And it does have to do with the leading lady. Otherwise, absolute banger of a movie. I'm stoked to go watch it.
Hell yeah, I'm very excited as well.
All right, well, we will see you all after the break after we have watched Jack Reacher.
Dear listeners, you joined us in a conversation already in progress. We started getting into it, and I had to press record.
And you just said, no, we're hitting record, because the thing that was about to come out of my mouth is Jack Reacher very cynically doesn't vote. But spoiler alert for another film we're going to do shortly, and we can reference this again next week, but I think when you ask Cameron Poe who he votes for, he just sighs and shakes his head and just says, I don't know about any of those guys, man.
He doesn't trust any men. We'll get into that next week. But he doesn't trust any men. He trusts 3 men.
And you're not one of them.
Me, not you. Me, not you.
Oh my God. Does that mean that he votes? That means he votes for Kamala because she's brat or something.
He
Anyway.
might, I don't know. Jack Reacher cannot vote because he doesn't have an address. He has,
No.
as he reminds us many times throughout this movie, a drifter. He says, he's like, I'm a dangerous drifter that knows how to use a gun. And I watch that and I go, fuck yeah, sounds cool, buddy.
He has
I'm into
a
it.
shirt.
When he said, holy shit, I texted you when he said that. The scene in the hotel where she's like, can you put a shirt on? And he holds up his shirt and he goes, this is my shirt.
Which is really...
As one.
Which I gotta say, I think that this is true of all good, like, crime, mystery, whodunit, thrillers, all of the top tier in those genres. They are very suspenseful your first watch. Yeah. Because you can't, because it's one step ahead of you. It's like it's giving you all of the information, but it's under your nose and you're not putting it all together. And then when you get to the end, it's like, oh, it all makes sense. And then when you rewatch the movie or you reread the book or you like do whatever, like upon subsequent engagement, those things should get better because you should be like, oh my God, it was right under my nose. Or like, oh my God, like it was all set up. Oh my God, it's like, it's so clear now that I know what is going to happen, which is very true with this movie. And that includes the scene when he's in the Goodwill and he buys his shirt. It's like they're cutting back and forth as they're like, Jack Reacher, who's Jack Reacher? And then like Yellow is like doing his whole rundown of who Jack Reacher is. And it's cutting back and forth between like the DA's office and what Jack Reacher is up to. And one of those things is he goes to a Goodwill and he removes the shirt and the jacket. And it's great.
Want to say, an incredible bit of costume design too. It is a perfect outfit for that guy.
It is.
Because like it's tailored and it fits him well, but it is just a little not put together. Like the sleeves in the Henley, they come out a little bit too far. Like his undershirt's a little bit dirty. The jacket's a little too old. Like it's just 5 degrees off. And like, look, I know as most clothes that people wear in Hollywood movies, much to my chagrin, like those are probably designer clothes, but they're really well chosen. They work. They imply exactly what you want them to.
Yes. And they make Tom Cruise look taller than he is because... But so, Carson, you just watched Jack Reacher.
Yes.
What do you think?
Fucking rolls. It's so good.
Isn't it, though?
It's really good. I really like Jack Reacher a whole lot. This is the first McQuarrie Cruise collaboration. And for most of the reasons that I like the McQuarrie Mission Impossible movies, I like this. It is a very distinctly different thing. It is a much smaller, more contained story. It is not a bombastic action movie so much as it is a quiet thriller, but it has all the economical story. It has the incredible like action that's like shot in camera. It has just Cruise firing on all cylinders, using that guy in the best possible way. It's great. Yeah. It's really good.
A lot of great stuff in there that I am excited to get back to. But having said that, Carson, we do have a game to come to. For those of you listening, this was but seconds ago. However, for us, it was about a week. So, Carson, we are returning to a game of Rotten Tomatoes, The Price is Right. And so let's just get into it, shall we? The first film we discussed was this film, Jack Reacher. Carson, you said 70%.
Yep.
I said
70%.
I said 83%. I have not looked at the score, but I think I'm closer. Oh my God.
Yeah,
are you kidding me?
I'm looking at it right now too.
Wow. Okay. This is like actually insane. And we should actually discuss this for a moment because we can obviously loop back to this, but Jack Reacher is only a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is insane. That is like genuinely insane.
I understand. I get why this movie was not a sensation. I get why they only did the one sequel. I understand that why maybe this does not become a franchise on the level of Mission Impossible. It is not a crowd pleaser in the way that those movies are. I mean, certainly it's just, like I said, a smaller, more contained story with a smaller budget. It is like more thoroughly pitched at a audience that is like primarily like your uncle.
Yeah.
And yet it's really, and for that reason, I understand why it's not, and it did well. was a big hit at the box office. I understand why it's not like one of the biggest movies ever with tons of sequels. I don't understand how someone watches this movie. I get maybe that you don't love it as much as we do, but you watch it and in the binary choice, yes, no, you go, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah. That is like
Yeah.
legitimately insane and like actively kind of upsetting because I think this film is. I mean, Carson, I texted you earlier today while I was watching it, and I said, this is the anti-MCU film. We will get into this on the pod, but this is like exactly what I want. Well, this is, I mean, I guess because now this film is 12 years old, like this is the exact forebear that I want to action films of today. In that, like, if we're in 2024 and it's like, name the ideal action movie, it's, well, I want whatever they are making 12 years later inspired by / informed by Jack Reacher because, you know, it feels early 2010s in a lot of ways, but also it feels perfect and excellent and very good. And yeah, it's very interesting. It was a $60 million budget. It made $218 million. So that's almost quadrupling its budget. Personally, I think it is a bummer that we only got one sequel, though the sequel is actually like pretty upsettingly bad. TBQH.
It's not McQuarrie.
It isn't McQuarrie, no, and therein lies the exact problem, which we will
it's the Last Samurai guy.
Yes, and we will kind of come back to it in that, like, in the way that, like, this is not McQuarrie Crew's Mission Impossible, and I love those movies. I love every single one of them. This exact alchemy of film is like even more my speed than the Mission Impossible films, and we will come back to that. But we have two more films to discuss. The next one is Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit. Carson, you said 48%. I said 60%. Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit is... Okay, Carson, you take it. I was closer, but I did bust. Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit is a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. Critics' consensus. It doesn't reinvent the action thriller wheel, but Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit offers a sleek, reasonably diverting reboot for a long dormant franchise. Which is interesting because they never made another one. That is interesting that they never made another one.
Doesn't that then become the Krasinski show?
It becomes the Krasinski show, yeah.
And this is what happened to Jack Reacher, too. We talked about this a lot in the first half. Now we're not doing these as movies anymore. Mid-budget action movies don't exist. Just put that on a streaming service, make it a 10-episode television show.
Right,
which is
for fucking real.
Stupid.
Which is really stupid. I mean, I guess it makes sense. This was also a $60 million budget 2 years later, and it only made $135 million. So not actually surprising that they didn't make a sequel. The third and final film we discussed was the Francis Ford Coppola ex Robin Williams film, Jack. You gave it a 40. Well, you predicted it would get a 40. I predicted it would get a 7. And Jack from 1996, is a 17%. Ooh, so I take that one.
Yep.
As you busted. Let's see. The critics' consensus for Jack is Robin Williams' childlike energy is channeled in all the wrong places with Jack, a bizarre tragedy that aims for uplift but sinks deep into queasy schmaltz. Carson, the tiebreaker is none other than Kangaroo Jack.
Oh shit. Gotta get that hoodie back. Kangaroo Jack was not a decom, right? It was just a movie.
It was a whole ass movie that went to theaters and had a... Have you, I mean, you are 2 years younger than me. However, I do feel like this is perhaps the level of like, I remember this very vividly and you perhaps do not. Do you remember the whole marketing fiasco with this film?
I do. I don't remember the fiasco. I remember there being a lot of marketing. What I remember is that I was really overwhelmed with Kangaroo Jack energy. I feel like maybe I don't think actually it was
big
Disney,
KJE, yeah.
And I didn't watch a lot of Disney as a kid. I was very much a Cartoon Network.
No, it's not
kid.
a Disney film.
I think it was advertised on Cartoon Network a lot. And I think there was a lot of, if I remember correctly, a lot of like the bumpers for cartoons, you know, it would end and then it'd be like, I don't know if they do this anymore. I don't watch current like kids television. I don't watch non-streaming television ever. So, but they used to back in my day. You'd play a cartoon and then like in the commercials, there would be like Blue from Foster's Home from Imaginary Friends would come out and be like, "Oh, hey, Jessica Alba, you got a new movie coming out?" She'd be like, "Yeah, it's pretty cool. Go back to Foster's Home." And he'd be like, "This Sunday, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. And next month, Jessica Alba." You know, they would do the rotating thing. And Kangaroo Jack was like in that shit all over. There was so many product tie-ins and like little bitties of Kangaroo Jack stuff. But what was there was a fiasco?
There is what I would say so I was born in 1994, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
This film came out in 2003. So I was 9. And I think that there are a lot of folks, you would have been 7, but
Yep.
I guess you just don't remember it. I think there was a lot of folks 1 to 2 years in my age range who remember this very vividly. And is like truly the first case of that I can recall of an advertisement lying to me. Carson, what do you think the film Kangaroo Jack is about?
I watched it when I was 7. Not since then. It's about like 2 guys are doing they're thieves, right?
That part is unimportant. So here's the deal.
Okay.
Is in the film Kangaroo Jack, they are apparently there is like a fictional character in the universe of Kangaroo Jack that is Jackie Legs,
Cool.
a cartoon kangaroo, right?
Into it. Love it.
But this is within the world of the film. And there's a moment where, yes, you said, gotta get that hoodie back. It's like they put they put the diamond in the coat, and they put the coat on the girl. I mean, they put the money in the hoodie, and they put the hoodie on the kangaroo. And the kangaroo jumps away with like $1 gazillion or some shit like that. And like the whole joke is they leave the hoodie on the kangaroo because they're like, oh my God, look, he looks like Jackie Legs. He looks like Jackie Legs. That's so funny. And then kangaroo bounces off. There is a scene in Kangaroo Jack where one of them gets like bonked on the head. I think Anthony Anderson is in this movie. I think it was my first Anthony Anderson.
So.
I might have made that up, but like one of the characters gets bonked on the head. Hi, by the way, this is a podcast about the 2012 Christopher McQuarrie film Jack Reacher.
Yeah.
But he gets bonked on the head. He hallucinates a scene in which the kangaroo is Jackie Legs and talks to him and does a little rap. And there is approximately 12 seconds in this film of a CGI kangaroo with sunglasses on, bouncing around, talking. The trailer of this film was just that. So every single one of us walked in and was like, this is a film about a talking kangaroo named Jackie Legs who raps and wears a hoodie and has a gold chain and has cool sunglasses, and new favorite character just dropped. Instead, it is a film where 2 guys in the desert try to find a very much live action kangaroo that does not talk. And that is a fiasco. There were so many people. I would say the number one cultural memory of this film for people my age is, that's a film that's not about a fucking talking kangaroo. End of story. Nothing else.
No,
I think it's pretty mid as well, but like that was the thing. Anyway, all that having been said, what do you think the Rotten Tomato score for it is? I'm saying 17.
I'm going to go a little higher. I'm going to say 25. Anthony Anderson's funny.
Okay. You know what? Happy inaugural episode. Nobody wins. Kangaroo Jack is a 9. Double bust. Kangaroo Jack is a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Shit. Kangaroo Jack.
Critics' consensus: the humor is gratingly dumb, and Kangaroo Jack contains too much violence and sexual innuendo for a family movie. And it is Anthony Anderson. Now that I am actually looking at it, I didn't want to Google it before because Google frequently spoils it. Anyway, let's talk about Jack Reacher. Nobody wins this week. Happy September.
Never look back. Nobody wins.
Whoever wins, we lose.
Oh, God. Think I'm a hero? I'm not a hero. I'm a drifter with nothing to lose. I'm reading off the quotes page. I mean to beat you to death and drink your blood from a boot. Incredible. When Tom Cruise said that, I pumped my fist in the air. I said, that rules.
As you should, as an American.
This movie does have a lot of, like, middle America energy. Like, a lot of legitimate Midwestern energy that a lot of movies do not.
Which
this movie takes place where I'm from. Primarily, I mean, partially. It's in Pittsburgh and northeastern Ohio.
Yeah, just across the border in Ohio.
Yeah.
No, well, I was going to say, it's funny you say that. And Pittsburgh is the most Midwest of Pennsylvania, I would certainly say. But it's funny because one of the few changes they made from book to screen is that the book takes place in Indianapolis. And for some reason, maybe they just wanted to shoot it on location, and maybe right outside the Philly Stadium is the best place for like that scene they needed. Because in a book, it can be fictional, but
I have a guess.
Yes.
I have a guess. My guess, because in Carson Betts, you can't remember 2012. Yeah, it was 2012. Because 2012, also the year The Dark Knight Rises released, which very famously was shot in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So my guess is that the tax incentives for filming action movies in 2011 in Pittsburgh were pretty good.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Like, look, that's so much of why movies get shot places that is not discussed. I mean, some of it certainly is production and good location scouts and directorial vision, but so much of it is just good tax incentive. That's why they fucking shot Superman in Cleveland. Like, look, hey, happy accident that Superman was made here, but it's literally the Cleveland Film Commission is like getting pretty good at upping the tax incentive games. We've been shooting a lot of shit here.
Yeah, well, and I mean that whole like snake eating its tail thing is like part of the reason it's so good to shoot in Cleveland is because the Russos are from Cleveland, and they're like, we want to shoot in our hometown, like we want to shoot shit. Yeah. We don't want to try. Like we are making like, dude, it would not surprise me if fucking at least some stuff from Avengers. Whatever, Doomsday, Avengers, Age of
Doomsday.
Robert Downey
don't
Jr.
pretend you don't know that it's called
well,
Doomsday.
But there's
the simplest title.
But there's two of them though, that they signed on to do.
The other one's Secret Wars, and I know that one because that's a very famous comic.
But so, yeah, I mean, the Russos are a big part of that, as they are from Cleveland, and they said, yeah, we have so much cultural cachet. I don't want to fly to Georgia to shoot the movie, shoot it where I live. And I don't know, part of this might just be Nolan playing a good like diplomat, but like, you know, he has said like, I wanted all three of my Gothams to be different cities, and like Dark Knight Rises Gotham just is Pittsburgh, which I don't mean that in a way that insults Pittsburgh. If I were Pittsburgh, I might be mildly offended by that, but also I get it, very industrial. But yeah, but also that might just be Warner Brothers being like, Chris, you have to make this, and then we'll give you whatever you want for the rest of your life, and also you have to shoot it in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh is, and I don't, as someone who lives in Cleveland, Ohio, I don't like to say this, both because it makes me feel ashamed personally, and also because people might kill me for saying it. Pittsburgh is a very cool town for a lot of reasons.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. It is actually one of the better cities in the Midwest. It's coming back. Like, in the way that actually, I'll say, Cleveland, Ohio, coming back. But we're about 10 years behind where Pittsburgh is. Like, we're going to get there, but it's taking some time.
No, I totally agree.
Pittsburgh
I totally
also,
agree.
And it's a thing that this movie uses to incredible effect. Pittsburgh, like, the topography of the city is really interesting because it's a city that is between two rivers, but is also in a valley. It's surrounded on all sides by hills. They literally in a circle around, and there are two rivers running through the city that come together, bisect, and then go around. So it's got this really, I mean, Nolan does a little bit too with the whole like blowing the bridges scene in Dark Knight. There's a little bit of technical wizardry there to make the town look bigger than it actually is. In this movie, it's a lot more plain. You just see the exact Pittsburgh skyline because it's taking place in Pittsburgh. But this movie, McQuarrie finds so many interesting ways to utilize we can do things in different parts of town, and you kind of get a really good idea of where they are in the city because the surrounding suburbs of Pittsburgh are so high above sea level compared to the city itself. Like, and it's in that opening scene. It's the really one of the cool factors of that opening sniper scene is that it is taking place in the edge of downtown in that park. And that he's still able to shoot from above and still see the edge of downtown. It's a really weird feature.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I mean, like that whole, my God. I mean, like not to jump to like
to the beginning of the movie.
The bookends. Well, I was gonna say it really bookends. I was gonna say not to jump to the last fucking scene of the movie, but just like the whole. I mean, that whole tension where like. I mean, I mentioned this in the first half where I was like, I was going to start this movie and then pause it when I was done with dinner and then go like do the chores I needed to do and then come back and finish it. And that opening sequence is so excellently done that I was like, holy shit, like that was so intense. It was so good. It was so just like instantly captivating that like I was like, no, I am in this. And so it's like you start there, and then for Reacher to just be like, yeah, this actually isn't the best way to do it. You're just like, what? What do you mean? And then it's like that, just like the geography of that whole layout is so important to the film. And it's not only important from like an academic standpoint where you understand, you know, it's not like a Sherlock Holmes thing where it's just like, oh, well, you know, well, of course he knew that because it's like, you know, he's smart and that's objective, like, you know, that's like factual academic knowledge that he's armed with. It's like it is conveyed all very visually too, how like widespread that you know, that vista is that the shooter is going across, you know, when it jumps to the end and he's just like, I would have done it from up there. And he just says it exactly the way Reacher says. It's so good. It's so good. I love it. The only time Reacher is wrong in the film, and Rosamund Pike, even though she just survived almost getting shot like 4 different ways to Sunday, she goes, you were wrong about my dad. And he's just like, yeah, I don't know that that's relevant right now, but it's just like only time in the movie he's wrong.
Oh, have I ever talked about in this podcast how I met Richard Jenkins very briefly?
No, when did he come into your bar? Was he shooting?
He did. I don't know why he was here. I actually looked into that. I'm like, is he doing a movie in town? I don't think he was. I think he might have family in Cleveland, if Wikipedia is to be believed. But he was, he's in the restaurant I was then working at with his wife. Came up to the bar.
Beautiful.
I served him a Cabernet Sauvignon. His wife was very distressed that I could not make her a sidecar because we had no cognac at the time. And I was like, and then in retrospect, and he walks away and I was just like, damn, that guy looks so familiar. Like, I don't know what it is, but that guy looks so familiar. And then, of course, the chatter goes throughout the restaurant about 5 minutes after that of just like, oh my God, it's the dad from Step Brothers. Have we seen him? He's in the corner.
That is upsetting. That Academy. I mean, it's not necessarily upsetting, but just like I would have said, that's Academy Award nominee Richard Jenkins.
That guy's worked with Guillermo del Toro and the Coen Brothers and Steven Spielberg, Christopher McQuarrie, and that guy is like the 4th billed male actor in 100 movies that you love. It also goes just how the incredible staying power of Step Brothers, something that we will never talk about this season of the podcast.
No, of course not.
We will never talk about Will Ferrell this season.
Simply couldn't be me.
Richard Jenkins is quite good in this movie, as he is in basically everything he's in. He's a fucking ringer of a dude. Rosamund Pike, excellent. I didn't know Werner Herzog was in this movie.
Yes, I think he was the one. I was like, do you know who the villain is? And you're like, he's kind of like an odd choice. Like, I can't place it. It's like kind of a weird character actor.
I think I said it was Sean Bean.
Yes.
I think my guess was Sean Bean.
Yes, your guess was Sean Bean. I'm like, no. I was like, you're kind of on the right track, but I'm just like, I'm not going to tell you because it's really cool. Because when it's like the first time you see him when he's in the shadow and you hear the fucking voice and you're just like, is that Werner fucking Herzog? And then he steps into the camera and you're like, yeah, it is.
Werner Herzog playing Werner Herzog. Like, he is no acting required for Werner Herzog in this movie.
Which is beautiful and brilliant.
It is. I don't really, I've only watched the movie one time, and it is like so not the point of this movie. I don't like 100% understand the exact way that he started a criminal organization in Pittsburgh, and it's like directly related to this trying to knock down the construction company scheme. I don't quite understand that, but it is such a shot in the arm in the middle of this movie, which is, up till now, as we said, been incredibly Midwestern, very American, very working class, to have Werner Herzog come out and be like, I was in a jail in Russia. I had to chew through my own fingers. In Siberia, I'm only known as the prisoner. It goes so hard. It's such a weird choice for this movie. And that also, I think, brings up the paperback quality of this movie, that it is very much one of a serialized set of stories that a guy wrote. You know,
yes,
you can tell the
I did some Googling.
Interesting shit, you know?
Yeah, I did some Googling, and this is the 9th book in the series, and that's the consensus just seems to be like, like, why did they start there for the movie? It's like, well, it's kind of the best one. Yeah, they're just kind of like, it's like, yeah, sure. There's other, there's probably in the first book probably goes a lot more into like who the fuck is Jack Reacher, but it's like that ninth one's just like it's kind of just like the best one. It's just kind of the best one. So do we just start there? Which I think is an excellent choice because this movie,
you know what we do?
Rules.
David Oyelowo gives a long monologue about who Jack Reacher is, and we make Tom Cruise look cool while he does it. And
right, because there's got to be somebody who finds out who the hell is Jack Reacher, and somebody's got to find that out. We can just have David Oyelowo say it, because of course in the book, which I have not read, but like they might gloss over it because you, the reader reading the ninth book, know who Jack Reacher is, but like that character had to find out at some point, and that's just such a great. Just such a great scene. Just like the montage, just the camera's on David, and he's like, go ahead and sign right here, like do the thing, give us your confession, blah blah blah. And then the camera just like starts to just whips around over to Richard Jenkins, and he's like, damn, from crime to apprehension to confession, that's got to be some kind of record for a crime this heinous, blah 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 blah. And by the time the camera just finishes that 180 over to Bar, it's just like, get Jack Reacher. Who the hell is Jack Reacher? Okay, so who the hell is Jack Reacher? They go through the whole thing. So how do we find him? Well, you don't. Not unless he wants to be found. And I said the first time I watched it, I was just like, there's a Jack Reacher here to see you. I'm like, that is absolutely. I was like, some like secretary or like lower level cop or like whatever. Somebody's gonna walk through that door. Like, there's a knock, and they're gonna say, there's a Jack Reacher here to see you. And she just opens the door and goes, there's a Jack Reacher here to see you. And I just pump my fist. I'm just like, it is a perfectly shot and scripted little montage right there.
Two things. And it's the brilliance of that montage too is like, and we already kind of mentioned it, the shirt thing, but like he is wearing one set of clothes. He goes to a thrift store, sells those clothes, buys another set. They establish really early on, like, this guy owns nothing. And that is supported in the monologue too, of like, well, he doesn't, he's a ghost, he has no property, he doesn't sign contracts, he doesn't have a credit card. But the way that they're visually representing Jack Reacher, you get the idea of, no, this guy has no possessions. He has one set of clothes,
and a
gun, and probably a big fucking wad of cash, and literally nothing else. And that is what he owns on this earth.
And I mean, there's also the thing where it's like Oyelowo's going through all of the accolades, and it's as he's changing clothes, and it's just like a really, really, really like tight bit of editing. It cuts to a different scar every time he says like a new decoration that Jack Reacher has, which is just like a very rhythmically, it's like it's doing so much in such a short period of time. It's like it's setting the stakes for the audience. It's like letting us know who he is, like on paper. It's like showing the way these like quote unquote normie cops are gonna like respond to him. It's giving us the visual information. It's really flashy, so it's keeping the exposition moving. And then and it's showing us all of these scars. So you're like, this is one tough motherfucker. So that when he gets into a brawl and just beats the shit out of 5 guys in one go, you just totally buy it. Even though that scene at the bar is the first like hand-to-hand combat sequence, you 100% buy it.
And that's the Cruise magic too, right? That's also the movie star quality, the shine that Tom Cruise has. The thing that we talked about so much when we talked about Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
That he can sell, he can do the thing which I think seems maybe very easy, because it's not like Jack Reacher is a character with a great amount of emotional depth, but he can do the incredible movie star thing of selling things like all the like him knowing what people are gonna say before they say it, and his like his perfect memory, and the scene of him beating people to fuck up, and his thing before that is that he's just not even fazed by any of this. He's so utterly confident in his abilities and knows what he can and cannot do in any one moment, that he's walking this weird line of walking through the movie like without any anxiety, totally unbothered, because he fundamentally knows that he's going to figure this out and get through it because he's Jack fucking Reacher.
Right.
And yet he never feels sleepy or checked out or as though he is not fully committed to the actual action that is occurring on screen. There's also, I just want to talk about Jack Reacher as a character, because like clearly this is like Lee Child's. This is a bit of a Mary Sue character. It's a little bit of a
Sure.
middle-aged white guy from America who was in the military, who's just the coolest person ever. He doesn't respect authority, but he has a strict moral code, and he doesn't abuse women, but every woman wants to get with him. He just needs, he's the savior of women and children, and he knows how to use a gun, but he would never use a gun wrong. He's just perfectly suited to every situation he's in. You already said it. He's never wrong about anything. He's like kind of everybody's dad, but also they all want to fuck him. He's a perfect dude, and Cruise can sell that. They do the interesting thing of like, he's a military guy, but he was in the military police. So he is both a badass brawler, gunner, fighter guy, but also he's like a detective. He's both. That's his history. He's perfect. And that's awesome. That does make me feel a little worried about what I haven't seen the actual sequel that exists, what that sequel and what other sequels to this movie would do. Because I wonder about continuing on with a character that is that flat.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying in that, like, I feel like so much of the success of this character is that Tom Cruise knows that Jack Reacher is cool as fuck. So at no point does Jack Reacher have to act as though he is cool as fuck. Tom just understands this thing of like, what are the things that makes Reacher cool? He knows everything. Like he's insanely intelligent. He's like an incredible detective. He like understands like what's going to happen before it happens, and he's good at beating the shit out of people, right?
Yeah.
Like he is very intelligent. Cruise does this like really great thing. Like there is just like a nonchalance to it all, because when you are that smart, and like when you are like reading it on the page and you're like, what's cool about this character? Oh, it's like he can predict so much of what's going to happen, or he can read between the lines. Like the quarter being the thing that gives away the fact that it's a setup.
Yeah.
It's like no, you wanted to plant one more piece of evidence, and so therefore you had to place a fingerprint there to really sell it, because you knew the evidence you needed to get him convicted. You didn't do the evidence that was there. That is so cool that he knows that. He doesn't have to come off as cool. Same thing too with it's just like, oh, like these thugs pick a fight with him in the bar and he beats all 5 of them up without breaking a sweat. Like it's physical effort, but it's not like he is at no point concerned that he's going to lose. That is cool.
Yeah.
So it allows for this like nonchalance of the character, which is another reason too why I said, like, I texted you and I'm just like, this is the anti-MCU, because there's the scene when they all meet at the same time. It's like Jenkins, Pike, Oyelowo, and Cruz all meet for the first time, and it's just this whip crackling dialogue. And it's just like, which is so good. It's just like, oh no, here she comes. Just like, you spoke to my client. Like, I didn't speak to your client, or like, you know what I mean? It's like, I didn't take him to see your client. He found us. Why'd you do that? You went to the DA. Is that a crime? Or is that against the law? And then that you're currently right. And it just goes back and forth. And then my favorite part is when Oyelowo looks at Cruz and says, weird to meet you. And Cruz says, likewise.
Yeah.
But it is just this like super like 6 out of 10 intensity, just like everybody just being like, wait, what the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on? And it's just like really like crackling dialogue just played like so undersold. And I was like, one of the reasons this is the anti-MCU is because in the MCU, though, that dialogue would be 100% less subtle and just dialed up to the extreme to like make the character seem cool and smart and funny and ridiculous. And like it is one of those things where like truly, if you are scrolling on your phone in that moment, you don't recognize that an actually very funny exchange of dialogue just happened. Like nothing about that scene telegraphs that like this is funny. And it's just like, because it's the 4 of them, like a prosecutor, a cop, like essentially a PI and like a public defender, like all walk into a bar and chaos ensues. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It really betrays and I think people don't associate Christopher McQuarrie. I mean, because he's a screenwriter. That he is a more prolific screenwriter than he is a director. That is how he gets his start. That is where he comes from. And I think that people, because of Mission Impossible, he is so closely associated with action filmmaking and with like his very intelligent visual storytelling that we forget that he is a very gifted screenwriter, like a preternaturally gifted screenwriter and storyteller. And it's the reason why they can make their Mission Impossible movies in their crazy, insano, backwards way where they don't have a script when they start shooting. Like, and that's actually something that you could not get away with. Like, you can't get away with that unless your director is as good as Christopher McQuarrie is at that shit. But it's great. Got a car. It's outside. Keys. My hand, man. They're in my pocket. Okay. Now look at your friends. Now look at my face. Do you ever want to see me again? No way. Am I stealing your car? Used as long as you like. You're very kind. Like, every sequence is. Everyone ends on a joke. Nearly every interaction that Reacher has ends on some kind of joke or quip.
And
but
not
they are
only
cut to shreds. There's no words out of place.
Yes, and not only that, but a thing we gotta remember too is that during this scene, Cruz has this man's finger torqued in a way that he's almost breaking it in the, I don't know what you call it, like the little piece of metal that goes in front of the trigger on a gun.
Yeah.
What'd you call that? Like a trigger guard?
Trigger hole.
Sure.
I don't know about guns.
But yeah, I don't fucking either. But yeah, it's like this guy was about to shoot him, and all he does is grab it with a few fingers and torque it the opposite direction, almost breaking his finger. And he is just applying this pressure, essentially having this man in an arm lock using the leverage of a gun against his finger, and has that exchange. And it's like there is that thing of I see that moment, and I just go, let's be real. It's 2024. We live in America. I think you would be very hard pressed to find a movie, even a lot of kids' movies, that doesn't have a gun on screen.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it has to be a movie in which a gun goes off. That would be Chekhov, not me. That's not my rule. I am not saying it is a movie in which anybody has to shoot a gun or an action movie, but it's just like, there's a lot of scenes where a cop walks by and they throw a holster on, you know what I mean? I have never seen that a gun be used in that way before. How did they come up with that?
Yeah.
It's like, it's just so clever. And it kind of does, again, just like it goes back to that thing of, I'm sure they're just sitting around. What would it be a cool way to like incapacitate somebody? Or like, okay, we've got Cruz in the hallway brawl. What's a good way? It's like, yeah, it's like, all right. So like, you know, no bad answers. He disarms the guy. He's aiming the gun at him for the conversation about like the friends in the car. Okay. Like that's the vibe we want. The vibe we want is he's got the leverage. How do we do that differently? It's like, I don't know. And then it's like, okay, well, he has the leverage. So what if, you know what I mean? And it's just like this, like super creative. It's so creative with all of this stuff. Same thing to do with like the big car chase. You know, there's so much good creativity going on with this stuff that it's just like it's just so wonderful.
I scrolled down. I found one of my favorite lines in the movie,
yes,
and
please.
it speaks, I think, also to it's the thing that a lot of my favorite action movies, my favorite dialogue-based movies with good dialogue. Jim Cameron has a lot of this in his movies. We talk about this a lot. Great action filmmakers, great action writers do this, where they keep the dialogue simple and punchy. This is a medium that is visual, and this is a genre within that medium that is even more visual than many others. But the dialogue is just complex enough and just clever enough that it involves you in the film more. Like, so the line, I was born in October. When I get to my birthday, I'm going to pull the trigger. And then he starts counting 1, 2, 3. That's a line that very much does not need to exist. You can imagine, I actually, I go back on the thing I said before that it's cut to absolute shreds. You can imagine a producer going through and being like, that is a nonsense line. You don't need to have that in there. He can just start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. Or just like, I'm going to count to 10. Like,
yeah.
Or just, this gun goes off at 10. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. But yes, but I was born in October. When I get to my birthday,
and it's not like that's a puzzle, but it does take your brain about a second and a half to go, October? What day in October? October's the 10th month. He's counting to 10. Like it takes you one extra second to get there. And it's not hard to get there. It's not like you have to be some kind of, really intellectual individual to like figure out what he's saying there. But it keeps your brain in the movie. It keeps you glued. And you see it as a tactic by Reacher to keep the person that he's threatening involved. Can we talk about Rosamund Pike?
Please.
She's
incredible.
So good.
Wonderful
She's so
in this
incredible.
movie.
She really does a great job of not getting bowled over by Tom Cruise. And that's a really hard thing to do in a lot of Tom Cruise-centric action movies. It is an especially hard thing to do in this movie, in which, like, he is playing the most... We've talked about this a lot. This is his thing for much of the 40 years of his career. Certainly not all of it, but a lot of it. He plays these dudes that are uniquely competent and highly confident in their abilities and their ability to move through the world. And, like, she stands up to him. She plays with him. She is a person, she is like, her role in the plot is to kind of always be on the back foot and always be following him. But you never feel like her intelligence is being insulted. You never feel like she is not an active participant in this plan.
Right. Well, and because that's the thing is like, because they have two different objectives, but their means to their ends are the same, which is like a really good dynamic to have, because it's this thing of like, it is not a thing where it's like, oh, well, like, she's fucked, so she has to call on Jack Reacher to prove the thing. It's like they both need to prove Barr's innocence or guilt, but for different reasons. And hers is ultimate. I mean, it's kind of that question at the end of the film with the Zek, where it's just like, what about bringing him to justice? And it's like, I just did. It's like Tom Cruise's, Reacher's aims are more personal, but his devotion is to like this weird ethereal kind of like probably neutral good, understand, at least in his mind, like neutral good concept of justice, and hers is to the justice system. And like, I don't know, like, she's like, I don't even think he's innocent. I just want to like give him the best shot that he can, because that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like they both need the same thing, which is to get to the end of this, but they're going at it for different reasons. They can't do it without one another, because she has the closeness to the case, being the attorney, and he's a detective. So it's like, it's good that they both need each other in different ways, and also their means are different. And I mean, I think you've seen this a lot with the Cruises, like more recent movies, is that with like Ilsa in Mission Impossible, with
I was about to
even with like you asked in the first half, you're like, is there an Ilsa Faust in here? And I'm like, not really, but also not no. There's not like a Jane Reacher, but there is like a very competent, very capable leading woman who like holds her own against Tom Cruise, because like I think kind of similar to the like, I don't need to play Jack Reacher in a way that Jack Reacher thinks Jack Reacher's super cool. It's actually way cooler if I don't. For Tom Cruise and for Jack Reacher to be the ultimate ladies man, he doesn't have to disrespect women. No. He doesn't have to put a bitch in her place in order to be a cool, big, strong, tough man. It's like, it's actually cooler, bigger, stronger, and tougher. What if Jack Reacher #respected women? Which, like, bars in the ground, but like, have you seen the other guy?
Put a pin in this, because we need to come back. We got to talk about I forget the name of the character, the woman in the bar. We got to come back to that. This is an incredibly common feature of not just Tom Cruise. This is the Bruckheimer and Simpson produced movies of the 80s action movie formula of highly competent man who is the best at what he does is challenged by highly intellectual woman who like comes to challenge his masculinity, and in the end they fall in love. That is a thing in a lot of Tom Cruise movies. This is a very interesting version of it, not quite in the way that it in the Mission Impossible films, I also think there's an interesting inversion of that trope, but this one is super weird. There's also an aspect of it that plays on Tom Cruise's weird inherent asexuality. I'm certain that there are counterpoints you can make, but like watching the scene where they're in the hotel and he's there looking all Abby and hot and scarred up, and they're sitting in this dimly lit, romantic looking hotel, and they're getting closer in some ways. And there is this expectation in the movie of like, well, this is the part where they kiss. And he gets so close to her such that she thinks that he's about to kiss her. And she simultaneously is like, no, we can't do that. That's weird, unprofessional, and you're a crazy drifter with a gun. But also she's briefly caught up in it. And she almost does it. And then when he just like gives her the key and walks away, and she's like a little flabbergasted for a second. That's kind of maybe, certainly not but like top 10 hottest moments on screen involving Tom Cruise.
Yes.
And like the reason that it's hot is that he is not playing that he is seducing her. He's kind of playing that he doesn't even know that he's doing it. Like that
right.
is,
it's like
that is
like,
almost the subtext of Jack Reacher, is that he does not understand that every woman, or like he knows that every woman wants to fuck him, but he sees that from such a distance. He's like, no, that's weird. Why do you want that? That gets in the way of my justice mission. I can't. Like,
well, and that's the thing, is like, compare that to the sex, which honestly I should put in air quotes, the quote unquote sex scene in Top Gun Maverick, where it's just like,
yeah,
Maverick, the most normal dude in the world, right? He cuddles and laughs with his lady friend in bed before and or after and or during the sex.
Yeah,
you know
hard
what I
to tell.
mean? Just like, look at how happy and charming Maverick is when he's doing the sex. And in this movie, it's so like, it totally, like, that scene is like really adorable in its own weird way, but like that scene is not sexy at all. It is the strangest part of that movie. However, in this, it's like, oh damn, Jack Reacher's so sexy, because like the hottest moment of the movie is he went to hand her the keys, and Jack Reacher didn't think that was hot and sexy. You did. And I mean, of course you did, because the exact thing that Jack Reacher does is the hottest and sexiest thing he does in the movie. You know, it's that thing of just like, much like Rosamund Pike, you're just like, oh my God, is he coming? Is he gonna just... Oh no, okay. Yeah, no, yeah, he was just handing the keys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because just Tom Cruise is an alien person. He can't feel human lust. That's why I am a noted Ilsa Faust stan. I am a massive Ilsa Faust stan. I am very mad at the way that she died in Dead Reckoning. I think that's my Letterboxd review, is like, I have an irrational fan anger about how they killed off Ilsa Faust.
Yeah, I can't help but agree. It is my least favorite part of that movie, for sure.
It sucks. But the thing that is great about the weird, almost romantic relationship between Ilsa Faust and Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible movies is that, like, you get no sense that these are two people that feel traditional human lust. They are both alien people. And, like, it helps that they're played by Tom Cruise and Rebecca Ferguson, two of the most, like, ethereally attractive yet completely weird actors
and
in Hollywood.
Hyper intense.
Yes,
people
hyper intense, very
on camera. I don't know anything about them in their personal life. Cruise, I can only imagine, is hyper intense, but I know nothing about Rebecca Ferguson.
I think Cruise is probably a very intense individual. I bet, yeah. It seems to be very kind, but intense. And, like, the thing that's hot and cool about that relationship is it's, like, it's not even that they want to, like, kiss or snuggle or bang. It's just that they're like, oh, finally, someone who understands what being a hyper-efficient, badass, wandering spy in the same way that I do. Someone I can respect and interact with on that level. And it's, like, almost sexual. And there's not that, obviously, but a kind of similar thing where there's this implied relationship between these two people, but it never gets there. It doesn't get there because the one character understands that it makes no goddamn sense because he's a crazy drifter, and the other character is like an alien man who only cares about justice. Yeah, it's really good. Can we talk about the woman in the bar? A thing that snags for me in this movie a little bit.
Yes.
And I don't, like, super care about. We slut shame her, like, a little bit a lot. I don't love it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Because I mean, like, the ultimate slut shaming of the character is that she is going out looking all dolled up, looking all cute as fuck, and gets murdered by the bad guy. And that is shown as bad. But her introduction is a little slut shamey, and certainly it's just like, well, she could have been, if it was just like the bad guy kills an innocent girl, she could have just been in jeans and a t-shirt, or sweats and a hoodie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it is a little slut shamey, for sure.
can almost excuse the scene at the bar because what that is revealed to actually be later in the movie. It's not just that Jack Reacher is so hot. I mean, Jack Reacher is so hot and sexy, and all the women want to be with him. That is a thing that this movie sets
That
up.
is
But
for sure is true.
Yeah, it's not that. It's that she was told to do this. Carrot and stick, like we're going to give you something, but also I think there's the implied threat of violence if you don't interact with this guy. The aspect of that she thought he was a sexual predator and that she was walking into that. And then that the response from the guy that she thought was a sexual predator was like implying that she was a woman of the night is it makes that a little bit more complex. Also, I think I'm also looking at the quote right now. I do think the joke of what I mean is the cheapest woman tends to be the one that you pay for. And she says, I am not a hooker. And he says, well, a hooker would understand the joke. I do think is pretty funny.
Yes.
It's like a rough joke, but also I'm like, yeah, I do think an actual sex worker might giggle at that, because that's actually not what Jack Reacher is implying in his, like, when he's talking to her before that. Like, that's not what he's trying to say. He's trying to say a different kind of sexist thing, which is like, no, I think that you're like, I don't know, you're trouble, you're gonna like try and do drugs with me or like give me an STI, but like, which is sexist in its own way, but he's not implying it. It's a big misunderstanding. But yeah, then it's like his next interaction is so paternal. It's so like, well, no, and she just needs a good Jack Reacher dad.
Right.
If Jack
she needs
Reacher
a good
was
Jack
her
Reacher.
Daddy.
Yeah, if Jack Reacher was her dad, and also, God, she wants to fuck Jack Reacher, because again, whomst amongst us does not? Can you blame her? But also, it's like, oh, honey, no, I'm too Jack Reacher for you. Yeah, I mean, this film is a really banging detective story. This film is a really bitchin', action movie. This film is a really, really fun thriller. It is ultimately a movie about about the military police being a flawed but also kind of bitchin' institution.
Our two other heroes are, I mean, our main, it's why this gets away. We talked about this in Top Gun. Tom Cruise really good at just, I need to play 4 quadrant so there can be the specter of something that is political, but we can't ever take a side. We cannot we need to whitewash as much as that as possible. And he does it in a way that I think is better and more ideal than a lot of other movies might. But like, yeah, our lead is a guy who, like, yeah, the military betrayed me, and now I don't trust the government, I don't trust cops, I also don't trust teenage punks that do drugs, and I don't trust gangsters. I don't trust anybody. I am only here for justice and goodness. But, like, his two allies are, like, an assistant DA and a guy that owns a gun shop.
Right.
So, played by Robert Duvall, who rules. I don't want to be wrong. He's cool, but that's a Trump voter right there,
Oh, 110%. Yeah. 110%. And I mean, well, it is one of those things where it's like all art is political, all film is political, all everything is political all of the time. We live in hell. And that's also just what the word political means. This is not a particularly partisan film. In fact, one of the best jokes in the movie is when he says, "Cops don't do 3 things. They don't like whatever." I don't even remember.
Democrat, drive Cadillacs, never use personal vehicles.
Yes,
I'm looking at the line right now. Yep.
Yes, and they're saying that right in front of a cop, and like they both look to him, and he just goes, "Hey, got me you a tea." Like, well, what can I say? And there is not a value judgment on any of those things. It's just, this is just a fact, kind of. I, former military police, you, current cop, she potentially, left-leaning, Hillary Clinton coded, nevertheless, she persisted, assistant DA. We can all agree on those things, right? And it's like, and it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, that is a political joke about politics in a film about the military police and American war crimes that kind of never has anything particularly critical to say about any of those institutions, other than like, I don't know, sometimes they're bad, but also sometimes they're good.
Cruise does it so well, better than anybody else. There's a lot of like, let me tell you a number of things about a thing. There's a lot of that in this movie, which is always pretty good. But he has the thing about what he's talking about Mr. Barr, the guy that they assume did it, where he's like, look, some people get into the military because they want to serve their country. Some people get into the military because they got nothing else going on in their life. Some people get into the military because they want to kill people legally. That's what it is. Like, you got,
Yep.
like, here's the range. Like, I'm not putting anything on the military as an entity. I am simply telling you that there are 4 reasons why people go into the military, and some of them are a lot better than others. That's the thing. And, like, we can both be like, wow, the military is a great institution. They trained Jack Reacher to be a perfect badass that fights for goodness and justice. And, like, there is a respect amongst military people that he has with Robert Duvall. Like, we can have fun with that and valorize that. Yet we can also be like, the military allows people to kill legally, then fucks them up in the head and turns them into weird sniper guys. Both things are there.
Yes. And that is the backdrop for our film. And what is your film saying about those things? Oh man, wouldn't it be crazy if there was a mystery to solve? You know? I mean, the villain is a crooked cop. Also, which is like a weird, interesting thing that a lot of movies do. Also, the bad cop is black.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I don't know, I did a very brief Google, not anything particularly deep. But I was like, I'm curious if that character is black in the book. I spent about 20 seconds Googling it and I could not find an answer. If you go to the Jack Reacher books wiki,
Reacherpedia.
Yeah, pretty much. It only says his character, Calvin, I forget the last name, I'm blanking on the last name, but like his character, it just says descriptors, hair color, black. It does not say anything else. So I'm curious as to if it's just never mentioned, if it's assumed he's a white guy and they just wanted to cast Oyelowo in the role, or maybe like, but that brings me to why we are discussing the politics of this film as a text. Let's talk about the one moment in this film that I need a time machine to go back to and sit down with Cruz and McQuarrie and be like, you cannot do this. You need to change this. And
You've been you've been laddering to this.
It's really 3 shots, but it's 3 shots of the same image. I refer to it as the birth of a nation shot.
Oh no.
Because it's in the end when Oyelowo has her taken hostage and he is just this eye over his shoulder or over her shoulder, and it's just like the looming specter of this black man taking hostage the pure, defenseless, beautiful, white, blonde woman that we all like, know and love, who was then saved by, in this film, the military police. 120 years ago, the person who busts down that door is the Ku Klux Klan.
It is truly, though. It's so scary.
Well, that's the
thing about it. It's so potent.
That's the thing is, I saw that shot for the first time and I went, you can't do that on television. And then I was like, damn, it is really effective. And I still will make the case that you need to do something else there because, and this is my take, is that as someone who has briefly, as a hobby that I enjoy, I do a podcast. I listen to podcasts. I write my little letterboxd reviews. I talk to people about movies on Twitter. As a hobby, I have dabbled in film history. And I have been told so many fucking times, well, we know it's racist, but like, did you know that Birth of a Nation actually has like really historic film significance in terms of all like the technical blah, 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 blah. And it is one of those things that as a hobbyist, I have had to, and I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong, because I understand that D.W. Griffith pioneered a lot of cinematic techniques that we still use today. But it is just a fact that, like, if I, as just a film enthusiast, have had to endure here's why Birth of a Nation actually is an important film that we still kind of have to discuss today. Somebody between McQuarrie and Cruz and the DP and the producer on set watching dailies, the folks in Video Village, the editor who's doing it, the color grader, all this stuff. At some point, somebody had to have had the thought, oh shit, we just recreated the climax of Birth of a Nation. we need to change that. And the fact that they didn't, I'm a little just like, it is one of those things where truly, like, I saw that image for the first time and it was like grabbing a hot pan where I just went, get it away from me. You know what I mean? Like, can't do it. And it does bother me. I will say it does bother me in that I am somebody who is just on the internet and it has been explained to me many times why Birth of a Nation is a film we still have to understand and discuss. That I am just like, damn, dude, the extrajudicial shooting of a black man by a cop to save a white woman in distress, especially a blonde white woman in distress. I know Rosamund Pike can't decide her hair color. I am not saying there was any ill intent
she
there.
Could dye it.
She could dye it.
She could dye it.
But, you know, I get that she's a natural blonde, or she has been blonde her whole life in every shot I've ever seen of her. I guess I don't know if it's natural. I don't know her life. But, like, you know, it is just one of those things that, like, that is truly a thing that I'm just like, you need to rescript that. Or reshoot that in a way that is
find
not
a different thing.
That there are other ways that he can put her life in peril. There are other ways that he can think he's got one up on Tom Cruise. And it is that thing where it's like, damn, it's crazy effective. It is just the ultimate Jack Reacher knows what the criminal is going to do because he just whips around the corner, can't see a goddamn thing, knows exactly where this man is going to position himself, and just shoots 2 inches past Rosamund Pike, even though he can't see the guy. He just knows the type. He knows him to a T. And also, I'm like, damn, there is a different way. Or a cop's going to cop, you know? Yeah. And there is just a way you can shoot that doesn't directly parallel Birth of a Nation.
You know who shot that? You know who the DP on this movie was?
Whomst.
Zooey Deschanel's dad.
Oh, that's right. Yes. I do recall that from the opening credits.
I'll be honest, and this is not like I'm trying to claim ignorance for moral reasons, but I forgot that was the end of Birth of a Nation.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the end of Birth of a Nation, but I know it is, like, other than the shot of the house, other than the establishing shot of a house, which blew people's fucking minds.
What if there was an establishing shot?
Yeah, honestly, other than that, it is the one of 3 clips from Birth of a Nation I have seen, because it is thrown down your throat. Because that's the thing. There's the shot of the house that's just like, damn, remember when establishing shots were invented? Then there is the one that, like, when people say Birth of a Nation, do refer to it as a racist film, they cut to the guy taking the woman hostage on the cliffside. She needs to be saved. And then when people also say, need to remind you that Birth of a Nation is about the Ku Klux Klan, it shows the shot of them all on horseback riding through. And those are, like, the 3 moments of Birth of a Nation I've seen. Because, again, I have had to endure the discussion about it.
I've seen all the parts that are in the movie Black Klansman.
Sure.
I've seen that movie a couple times. It's a good movie. I see you. I feel you. I hear you. That is unfortunate. It's also just that Yellow is the only person of color in the whole movie.
Right.
It is slightly, obviously there is just that direct blocking connection, like literally just the blocking of the scene. But it's maybe even a little different. You know, and Duvall's great, and I understand why you get him. It's partially because he's like an old Hollywood badass. But like if it was Carl Weathers who ran the gun shop, maybe even a little different then.
Yeah, R.I.P. in peace. That's the other thing too, is the first time I watched this movie, it's like, other than Jai Courtney, which we've not even brought up on this podcast.
I was gonna say, good on us, we never even mentioned Jai Courtney the whole time.
You know what? He's actually very solid in this movie,
quite
and
good.
I think he's good.
He is good.
But it's one of those things where, other than Jai Courtney doing the shooting at the very top of the film, Oyelowo is the first, like, named character we see in the movie when he, like, walks through the door to the parking garage. And the first time I watched this, he walked on screen, and I'm just like, I didn't know he was in it. I'm just like, ooh, baby, a treat for mama. Look who just came on screen. An actor who I know is so good. Like, he's a great actor.
The 4th lead in this movie is David Oyelowo. That's awesome.
Exactly. The 5th is Richard Jenkins. Oh my God, I'm in heaven. The 1st is Tom Cruise. Wow.
Yeah.
This is great.
And Jai Courtney's there. That's fine.
And Jai Courtney's there. You know?
What's the last movie Jai Courtney was in? I'm looking it up right now. He was... Oh, Caroline, do you know the last movie that Jai Courtney was in?
Give me an hint.
He is reprising a role
Oh, is he in the Flash as Captain Boomerang?
Yep,
Okay.
Yep, he's in the Flash.
Amazing.
I think that's it. I think we could talk about Jack Reacher for a long time. There's a lot to talk about. Both in terms of like the semiotics of its political stuff. It is a very capital A American movie. Very American. A lot of ways. We could talk about that forever. Also, we could talk about just cool shit that happens in it for a long time.
Yeah, I'm just like so curious. And we will actually get into this conversation a lot next week. I believe, not to briefly end here, but the American military industrial complex and like police state infect every aspect of our lives. Is there any way to do a detective crime that's not about police or cops or the military?
Yeah, like the Hardy Boys.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, it's like, because PIs don't exist. They take pictures of people fucking in hotels. That is what that job is. Send tweet, come at me, PIs. But like, seriously, like, I've thought about this a lot of just like, if you want to do a mystery, it's kind of the Hardy Boys. Like, what do you do? Like, there's like, there's like Hercule Poirot, who's like a private detective.
Yeah,
but like, even he is like, even the Branagh Perot, when it explains how he got his mustache, has to show that he's a World War I veteran.
They explain that
there is an extended sequence.
Does he have a different mustache in every movie?
It's not it's like, it's kind of like
it's the same hair.
I mean, if we're gonna be, if we really want to get into it, Carson, Hercule Poirot's mustache is similar to Spider-Man's suit in that it goes through subtle redesigns from film to film. It's like, it's not a thing where he walks out at the beginning of the film and says, look at my brand new mustache style. But you go like, oh, the webbing in this one is like a little bit more raised. You're like, the eyes are a little, and in Amazing Spider-Man 1, he had the orange tinted eyes for some reason. And we don't have to explain why they're white. We just know that production designers tweak things from here to there. So
in this one, he's got the symbiote mustache.
Yes, correct, indeed.
Black, sticky symbiote mustache.
So like, well, as we all know, in the climax, when he was fighting the Green Goblin, the suit got pretty torn up. When he was freezing on the Orient Express, like, his mustache lost a little bit of hair. So like, we don't have to explain that he repaired it. We just know that as time went on, obviously Hercule Poirot would re-groom his mustache, and of course it's going to be a little bit different this time. But yes, there's an extended sequence in the beginning of, I believe it is the third one. I believe it's Death in Venice. There is a legitimate 10-minute prologue about how Hercule Poirot got his mustache and why it is that way specifically.
That's really quite something.
Those movies are incredible. Every time they make a new one, the previous ones get better. Send tweet.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of, this is my last word, characters that I like a lot, such as like a Batman, a Sherlock Holmes. A common feature of that archetype, really, it's the Sherlock Holmes archetype. It's almost Jack Reacher a little bit too. Independent detective who works with the police primarily because they are around. Like, there are crimes happening, and so the police are in the vicinity.
Those are the people who go to the crime.
Yeah, and
based on our system of governance. Yes.
That is the common response. Maybe they have like one friend. Like, Sherlock Holmes has his one cop friend that works for Scotland Yard. Batman has Commissioner Gordon. Versions of Batman that I like the best are often the ones where it's like, well, look, I like Commissioner Gordon. I trust that guy. The rest of them, I don't fucking trust him an inch. Like,
right, and they don't trust Gordon because
they don't like me, and I don't like them. And like,
they make it very clear. Yes, they make it very clear that Gordon is disliked and has to go to Batman because he is disliked for being the one non-crooked cop in all of Gotham City.
Yes. The Nice Guys. That's one of my favorite movies that's about detectives that, I mean, there are police in that movie, but I don't even think any of them are named characters. Jack Reacher is good. I liked it a lot. I will probably watch the second one at some point and get my heart broken, but it's great. The thing about this character is that Cruise could do him when he's old. Yeah. You could do old man Jack Reacher.
You could. I would love to see another one. I would love to see, that would be such a fun, maybe Cruise and McQuarrie will, be done when they're done with Mission Impossible and just like, no, like this was a beautiful partnership. Let's whatever. But I mean, I think this is kind of the perfect thing to do post Mission Impossible is have the two of them reteam, because this one is specifically so much smaller.
It's less likely that Tom Cruise is going to die doing.
Yeah, with this film specifically, it is significantly less about what if the most insane action sequences ever happened, and I mean much more to just like that elevated intelligence, like kind of underplayed. It's just like, well, what if just like Jack Reacher getting away from the cops in a car, like what if he didn't have to like jump off of the skyscraper to do it? What if he just had to drive through the city really fast and recklessly and not kill anybody?
Yeah.
You know, what if to prove that Jack Reacher, to prove Ethan Hunt's the most badass person in the world, he has to hang off of a jet plane. To prove Jack Reacher's the most badass person in the world, all he's got to do is like win a bar fight pretty handily.
We'll do it on Patreon when they release Dead Reckoning Part 2 or whatever they call it. We got to do a big Mission Impossible episode because I have so many Mission Impossible takes.
Yeah, just one big omnibus.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, because Ethan Hunt is a very different character. I mean, he's kind of, for the first 4 movies, he's kind of a different guy in each one, but the McQuarrie onward Ethan Hunt.
Yes.
The incredible thing about the way they characterize Ethan Hunt in those movies, and it's very subtle. It's not the roundest, he's not the roundest character in the world. But they do a really good job of characterizing Ethan Hunt as a total fucking weirdo, as just a maniac man who, like Tom Cruise, is just needs to do impossible missions and he can't stop. Like, and all of his friends are like, Ethan, you can't keep doing impossible missions. You're gonna die.
Yes.
And he's like, no, 100%. The world is in danger. I must.
Yes.
I need to do a bigger movie. We need to spend more money on the next movie.
Yes.
Can we do it with real planes?
Final word is Jack Reacher is Silvio. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And Ethan Hunt is Uncle Junior. He will do this until the day he fucking dies, even if it kills him, so help him God. This has been our episode on Jack Reacher. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And Carson, what are we doing next week?
We're keeping it going. I don't know that you could really qualify it as a classic, much in the way that Jack Reacher is really not a classic, but it's a movie that I like a lot, and that movie's called Con Air.
The movie is called Con Air.
It's the stupidest movie ever made.
A film that certainly we do not have to wrestle with any of the political implications of anything depicted on screen in that film.
No.
Certainly not.
No. There's nothing bad or problematic about Con Air, let me tell you.
Not even a little bit. Well, thank you all so much for listening. That was our episode of Jack Reacher. We will see you all next week when we talk Con Air.
Thank you to Thomas and the Workmen for our theme music. Their EP, Good Company, can be found on iTunes and Spotify. How Have You Not Seen can be found anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you like what you heard, give us a review on iTunes and interact with the show on social media. We're HHYNS Pod on Instagram and the website formerly known as Twitter. Keep up with what Caroline and I are watching on Letterboxd. Her username is CK Cinema, and mine is Fun Movie Zone. This show is produced with financial support from listeners like you. So, if you really liked what you heard, please check out our Patreon by putting HHYNS into the search bar. Over there, we've got years of content reviewing new releases and old favorites. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us again soon.